How has Detroit been able to reduce crime? What can America learn from what we do here? And how can we support these homegrown people doing the work, keeping our streets safe? Welcome to your Daily Detroit for June 18th, 2024. I am Jer Stays. Let me tell you, I think Dujuan Zoe Kennedy of Force Detroit might open your eyes a bit on these topics. He's part of Force Detroit. Force stands for Faithfully Organizing Resources for Community Empowerment, and it's the work of interfaith, grassroots, and public sector leaders committed to having hard conversations about complex community issues, pushing boundaries, and acting on creative, justice-oriented solutions. And let me tell you, this is going to be one of those conversations. What I love about them is that they connect people that are least likely to be engaged. They bring them in the loop, and I think that's a great thing, and the results are undeniable when it comes to improvements on the street. We had this conversation up at the Mackinac Policy Conference, and we're able to bring it here to you thanks to your local Metro Detroit Best Choice Roofing. In my mind, there is one choice for roofing around here, and I'd go with your best choice. Whether it's time to replace your roof, repair it, inspect it, or get your gutters cleaned, Best Choice Roofing provides top-notch roofing services tailored to meet the unique needs of Detroit homes and businesses. They serve the region and inside the city of Detroit, too. Find out more at bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit or call 313-474-7031. That's 313-474-7031. Joining me at the table at the Grand Hotel at the Mackinac Policy Conference is Dujuan Zoe Kennedy. He's a Public Health and Safety Director of Force Detroit. Really interesting stuff around reductions in gun violence in the Côte Rouge district. It's important to the city of Detroit. It's important to everything, and it's important to really see these programs that actually make a difference because, Zoe, I feel like a lot of people felt like they were just going to throw cops at the problem. And that didn't work. So let's talk about why that didn't work and what you're working on.
I believe that law enforcement does play a role in community safety, but I know that community members who understand community details, they play a significant role because we can get ahead of the problem before it happens. It's something that goes on in all communities when you're interconnected or when there's a very intimate setting in communities. Same way it would be in a family. Everybody in the family, or most people in the family in the household, know what's going on. A lot of times if something happened in the household and police respond, they're responding once it's left the house. Well, the neighborhood is a house, and we are part of the household. So we hear the arguments like, imagine the neighborhood being a home. Imagine you being in the back room, hearing two of your brothers argue. And you come out like, man, what is y'all arguing about? Right? We all got to live here. We all got to coexist. This is our home. Our neighborhood is a home. The difference is it's a method of interconnected, intentional engagement. It's intentional. And what I mean by intentional is we leverage our lived experience, our informed processes, like being trauma-informed, understanding the best practices as far as when it comes to intervention and de-escalation. And we use our lived experience to basically gel all that together and address the problem. I would say it's similar as well to if you have a friend intoxicated, and sometimes people be under the influence of emotion, drunk with anger, it's easier for a friend to take the keys away from somebody than a stranger. If a stranger take the keys away, person gonna fight, right? If a person who has relationship take the keys away, it's different. Now, what makes that unique or what makes it sustainable is when the person who has that influence to impact the person in that moment has the resources to sustain the decision not to do. So it's not enough that you have credible people with lived experience. You still have to have the resources to sustain the decision not to do.
Unpack that a little bit for somebody who doesn't understand.
Okay, for somebody who don't understand. We understand that a human being is a human being, no matter what you put on him or her, or no matter where you put them. Basic needs are basic needs. When you meet a person's basic needs, food, shelter, water, clothing, you can utilize that to build relationships. Everybody should understand relationships. Everybody should understand love. When a person shows you that they love you, you're more inclined to listen. That's simple, right?
Absolutely.
If a person is strategic and methodical in expressing love and guidance, and you see that the guidance that they're giving you is beneficial to you, it may be momentarily beneficial. Sometimes it's hard to see the long term.
Because a lot of this, and you mentioned the term trauma informed.
Yes.
And I feel like it all connects together,
Yes.
right? Because if you are living in a situation of constant trauma, and that is what is happening to a lot of people,
Yes.
when you see violence and things like that, that comes from somewhere.
Yes.
Right. And it has roots in something. And one of the things
Yes.
I appreciate about the work that I've kind of like done some research and seen what you do, and this approach that isn't just about police intervention,
Yes.
is that it's that more holistic look, understanding where this comes from, instead of saying that person is a problem. There is a system
Yes.
that is at play here that also, like, we have
Yes.
to address people's needs. We have to put our arms around that.
Yes. So, like, a lot of people use the term structural racism, right? Where it's continuous structural trauma, blow at the blow at the blow to a person's ego, self-esteem, self-worth, right? Mm-hmm. Blow at the blow.
Like, when people say, oh, well, so-and-so just hanging out at the gas station or all those other things, I have met very few people in my life who don't want to be able to take care of themselves. Like,
Right.
like people want to show up. They want to be loved and give love. And you have to start that cycle somehow.
Right. And when you talk about like let's talk about humans, right? How do you condition a person? It's just like having a person that exercises. Well, a person that exercises and that's healthy. Let's talk mental health, but let's use physical health as example, which is ironic that we have physical health K through 12, but we don't have mental health K through 12. But let's talk about physical health.
Yeah.
In physical health, they teach a person how many routines to do, what nutrition is good for what part of the body, or muscle mass building. They teach you how many times a week you should work out, right? Well, your mental body is just as important. Now, when we talk about physical health, everybody's not in the same shape, right?
I mean, I just went through a journey. I've lost nearly 40 pounds. I feel like I've gotten 10 years
Imagine
back.
if you lost 40 pounds. You said 40 or 30.
It's like depending on the day. It's you know how it
How
goes.
How much you lose?
I'm at like 38.
So imagine if you lost 38 pounds of trauma.
Yeah. Right on those shoulders, right on that heart, right on that brain.
You see what I'm saying? And we knowing that trauma causes health complications as well, but it affects your decision making. So dialectical therapy teaches you how to regulate your emotions. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you how to regulate your thought process, right? A lot of people are doing this work, and I understand this work because I was one of those individuals that participated in cycles or acts of violence. But this is because this was learned behavior. This was learned behavior when it comes to problem solving. But if you give a person a different method to solve a problem, and you're the right type of teacher, everybody not the same type of learner. Some learners learn like by visual, audio. Some people are kinesthetic, which means they learn by doing. Me, I learn by doing. I have to feel it. I have to know it. I'm hard-headed. Yeah. But some are people, the people who like, it's a lot to this stuff. It's a lot of science backing up things. Some people are risk takers as well. It's encoded in their DNA. They have scientific evidence. So how do you address this type of individual? How do you address an individual dealing with trauma? How do you address this? How do you diagnose someone if a soldier can experience PTSD? And we know the criteria to PTSD. It's in the diagnostic statistical manual, which this is a book for those who not familiar with it. This is a book that the psychologists and psychiatrists use to diagnose behavior. So post-traumatic stress syndrome says if you have experienced a traumatic event, even if you've seen it, You could suffer from this. So if I'm a child and I'm seeing people around me die, and I'm seeing that law enforcement only shows up after, carrying a weapon doesn't become just a lifestyle. First thing it becomes is a safety issue. Because I'm getting this because I don't feel safe. And I may harm somebody because I'm taking the law into my own hands, or I don't trust the law. Not saying that the law isn't doing its job, but the way we address trauma, it has to be more intentional and proactive.
And expecting law enforcement to be able to fill that gap properly is not.
I think honestly, like, I think it's asked in a lot
Yeah, that's what I was.
to respond and to be proactive.
Because
So
in many situations, you have law enforcement going into a situation where they too are experiencing a bit of trauma. Like, what are they about to see?
you got to think they got to tap into
when they're
assertiveness, aggression to even deal with a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got this mix of trauma and experiences and emotions. Things are going to go
human
wrong.
too. They're human too.
Yeah, and so it's going to go wrong, or it could go wrong. And so let's talk about what the program is that you're doing, because I understand that you were able to do some really amazing things in the Cody Rouge district with some funding from ARPA and some other things. Why don't you talk about the program that's going on over there?
We were able to hire individuals to live experience. We were able to train them. We were able to send them out in the community. We were able to hire case managers to deal with some of the basic needs of individuals. One of the main things that was working, we seen that social media was a big problem, right? We know that.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So how does social media tie into all this stuff?
Well, social media, I mean, you ever got bullied before?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at me.
Right? So if you got bullied before, I've been bullied as well. If you got bullied before, a bully has to have access to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you know what humiliation feels like, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have the capacity to react violently to humiliation, disrespect, you know that social media, everybody's scrolling all day, every day. What this is given is unlimited access to an individual, right? So what we do that's different from law enforcement, but I acknowledge what law enforcement do. I respect them because they do their work, right? When they doing it right. Same thing with us. When we do our work right, we do our work. Law enforcement monitors, addresses, and responds to crime. We monitor, address, and respond to disrespect. Law enforcement doesn't have the time, man hours.
That's not their charge.
Right. So we're able to get in front of it because if we do traffic stops on disrespect. Oh, you're doing too much. Pull him over. Hold on. You need to calm down, chill out.
Yeah.
And when you minimize disrespect, you mitigate conflict.
When that social media, so even if you're in a situation, let's say something happens at the liquor store, right? You're just talking right?
Right.
That social media allows like that next punchback, right? Where it's like, instead of walking off, like you go to your house, they go to their house on the block, and you're apart.
Yes.
You get a few hours to chill out. Like, whatever.
But you got to think.
But social media, he's like, I'm going to get right back at it.
Man, we done seen it. We done seen politicians go back and forth on social media. We done seen celebrities go back and forth on social media. We've seen faith-based leaders go back and forth on social media. We've seen regular community members go back and forth on social media. What make you think the highly impacted individuals that had a capacity to harm don't go back and forth? Now, when they do go back and forth, right, it's more serious because it can escalate into bodily harm. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, Detroit, where we from, has been displaced due to foreclosure, pandemic. A lot of people are renters. So you don't see people just standing outside, standing at liquor stores. A lot of stuff that goes on virtually, and it spills out into the real world, because who has that type of access? People not just standing around like that. And we focus on highly impacted individuals. We focus on individuals who are really a real focal point when it comes to violence in certain areas. We focus on hotspots, so we're very intentional about who we spend our time with, what we're saying to them, what we're encouraging them to do, and the sustainability of it. So that's one of the real things I want to touch on. Like, we've been effective with our methods, but we're not effective right now because we need community. And what I mean by community, I mean citizens, not just people from the neighborhood, to advocate for perpetual funding, permanent funding, just like every other department is funded in government, to be able to continue doing the work because we know that it's impactful and we got the numbers to prove it.
Why don't we talk about a couple of those numbers? 'Cause I hear what you're saying. So why don't we share, off the top of your head, what are some of the key stats that you have kind of shown over this period?
Okay. Well, one, a fatal shooting costs the taxpayer estimated $1.6 million. That's all the things that go into it: court costs, scene cleanup, surgery, or the morgue. Non-fatal, $1.1 million. So say you save a life.
It's actually not that. Wow, I'm fascinated for a number of reasons, but go on. I apologize.
Right. And they compare the statistics of non-fatal and fatal shootings the previous year to the current or the present year. We had a 70% reduction, 72%. We've ranged in that for the last 2 quarters, which I'm grateful that people are alive. But if you're looking at that, that's more than 50%. So if 10 people got shot last year, that means 7 people didn't get shot this year or killed this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, that's saved, if we talk about bare minimum, $7 million.
Yeah.
In one area. Now, our area isn't the only area. It's multiple organizations in the city, actually 6. And from the stats, it says 4 have been doing well. So the city average has been around 20%, a little above 20%. The CVI groups, the neighborhoods that they've been in or that we've been in, been like 44%. The numbers are showing that engagement, intentional engagement, methodical engagement has impact. And what's challenging to me, like once you see the numbers and once you see certain things have an impact, what's challenging to me is, and this is not selling potato chips or used cars. When impact is being shown, that means lives are being saved.
Yeah.
What's challenging to me is, why wouldn't people want other people lives to be saved? Why wouldn't advocacy, whatever should be going on to make sure this is permanent? It should be no back and forth, right? If you see likelihood, promise, evidence to save life, you got to think, and I don't take nothing from the brothers and sisters in law enforcement. Sometimes it's on the rise. They funding don't go nowhere. It's going to stay.
Yeah. And they've got very powerful groups to help support that funding.
Right.
And this is a situation where it's something that it's I think for some folks, maybe it's a new idea. It makes perfect sense to me, what you're talking about.
Right.
But they're like, well, I'm used to we've got centuries of the idea of like the police officer or whatever.
But the police not going nowhere. Who said they going somewhere?
Right. And I think that's where we get caught up. I think a lot of people think it's an either or, where it should be an and.
I would ask people this. See how much they invest in rescuing animals and dogs. See how much money is invested in that. Dog shelters. See how much money is invested in animals alone.
All very valuable and important and all those things, but we should think about that with this sort of stuff, especially stuff that works in a city where, look, I've been an adult in the city for more than 20 years. And to see this kind of reduction is just astounding. Like, it is, I believe it. But as somebody who's a long-term resident, like, it's almost unbelievable. But it is, I believe it because it's real and it's there.
Yeah.
But like this kind of program, to me, and programs like it are much more of the answer than doubling down on so many other things.
I agree.
That we've tried. And also it gets people in the neighborhoods employed and working in their spot in a
Yes.
place where we have people locked in generational and geographic poverty.
Yes.
Like one of the reasons, and people get on me, that's like, why do I harp on about transit and all that? Because people got to get to jobs. As I said, I don't believe people don't want to work. It just, it's real hard to get to a job when the bus.
Transportation is big.
It's huge, man. Reliable.
Man, that's
you
part
show
of
up
the
late
problem.
3 times, you're done at most
Listen,
jobs.
you got to think, right? It's been displaced. We do cross neighborhood organizing.
Okay.
Right? It's not just about who's in the neighborhood. It's about who's outside the neighborhood that are coming in the neighborhood to harm somebody living in the neighborhood because they was arguing or they got into it wherever they got into it at. Transportation, big issue. Okay, even when we talking about direct service, we talking about therapy. Well, how do you expect a person who is a high value target in the streets to be standing at a bus stop, put the public at risk? Do you think, or how do you expect the person who traditionally, or a person who hasn't been going to school, you want me to tell them him or her to stand at the bus stop again? Yeah. This is the reason why they stopped going. They didn't want to do that. So you have to employ different methods. There's certain things that's funded, even with animals, right? It's all type of stuff. What else do we have to do? That's what I would say.
So who are you looking for this funding from? Like, what is the goal? Like, what is the, we're at a conference. I'm going to use the fancy term, but like, what is the ask, sir? Zoe, what is your ask?
So my ask is, one, policy for permanent funding. Right now, they have a few bills in that passed the House.
Is this federal or state?
This is state.
Okay.
But it's be federal as well. But policy, permanently funding community-based violence intervention. Also, philanthropic community, which they've been stepping up to fund, same way they do about cancer and AIDS. Also, private sponsors. And I'll say this, during the pandemic, when George Floyd took place, community-based organizations, along with law enforcement, prevented the city from being tore up and burnt up.
It's something I was very proud of. To be very honest, as a city resident, I was very proud of that.
So they said that, right?
Yeah.
During 2022, there was a few shootings downtown. Community-based organizations, along with law enforcement, showed up, taking care of our brothers, our sisters, and our children, our city, community, showing up, along with government, and it's being respected. The corporate, private entities sponsor our work so that we have unrestricted funding so we can do innovative things, because public dollars are restricted. Private dollars are also restricted. We've shown you that we're responsible when it comes to our people. We've shown you that we'll show up time and time again on a shoestring budget. Support us. Look out for us like we look out for you, because we are all residents of Detroit, or we are all individuals that visit and reap the benefit of Detroit. So I would say I'm out here also to represent the directly impacted, and this all the names, formerly incarcerated, disenfranchised, to show and be present. One, I'm grateful to be here. I served 15 years in prison. Been invited to the White House twice. Didn't let me in the first time, but I got in the second time. But
you don't succeed at first, try again.
Yeah, but I say all that. I say all that to say this. I'm here to represent my community the same way a state rep represent the state. I'm here to represent my people. I'm going to be the best representation that I possibly can be, and I'm going to advocate for them as much as I can. And I expect public officials, elected officials, to do what's in their constituents' best interest. I expect that. So what I'm up here to do is make people meet their expectations.
So for those listening to this, I know you're saying, policies, permanent funding. What does that look like? Is there a dollar number goal? Is that something that's a variable thing? Like for scale, or if someone who owns a company wants to be a part of this thing, like what are you talking about here?
Okay. At Force Detroit, right now, we're looking at a minimum of $700,000 to $775,000 to staff and run an organization. But we know, as we've been doing the work, it's going to take at least now 1.4, 1.6 right? Now, when we talk about 1.4, 1.6 mil annually,
of things, that's not.
no, I'm talking about for one organization.
Yeah.
Now, it should be multiple organizations throughout the city.
Yeah.
It should be multiple.
With local context.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like hyper local.
Right, because everyone looks at things like the city of Detroit or whatever place, and they think of it as like a monolith. Well, it's just Detroit. But
Our number was 150 million over 10 years. And that was minimum.
Yeah.
150 million, that was minimum though. Over 10 years.
That's the start that you're looking for.
That was the start.
That's the start. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, to be honest, I'm like, this is the kind of thing that should just happen.
It should, but stuff don't work that way. So
I know it doesn't,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's the things that we could wish.
So we got to get on ferries and come to islands and have discussions and try to get people to see how serious this is. I would say to everyone, like, imagine growing up in a community where you grow up and your best friends dying, or one of your best friend's relatives getting killed, or one of your relatives getting killed, and it's happening over and over and over and over again.
Well, and isn't this a great way to help ensure that Detroit's comeback is real for everyone?
Yes, and I think it's doing that. I want to give out my sister, Alea Harvey Quinn, the executive director of Force Detroit. I got out of prison in 2019. She educated. Community doing such beautiful work. You have multiple organizations. Detroit Families and Family, People's Action, New Era Detroit, Detroit 300, multiple organizations. List could go on. I hope I don't offend nobody. But I ain't about to keep saying. But we are in a city that supports community-led strategies when it comes to taking care of community. So I look at it like it's changing, not fast enough, but I would encourage the individuals that do support community-led solutions to be more of an advocate for a community, because when you do that, community learns to organize itself and do the things that are for its best interests. And if you're on the up and up, we gonna hold you up.
If people want to get involved, if they want to learn more, if they want to get behind you, where can they go? What can they do?
ForceDetroit.org. ForceDetroit.org. We would love volunteers. We would love to actually educate and inform people about the work so that they can potentially try to get it implemented in their community. ForceDetroit.org. We also like to hear from the community and share ideas and concepts, because everybody's expertise and lived experience is valuable when they're informed.
Dujuan Zoe Kennedy, Force Detroit, it's been an honor to have you here. It's really been great. I'm really glad you stopped by and spent some time with us.
Oh, man, thank you. I'm glad y'all had me.
All right, we'd love to know what you think. dailydetroit@gmail.com. That's dailydetroit@gmail.com. Love your feedback. Normally, with tomorrow being a federal holiday, we take it off. But the team has a special conversation for you. Norris Howard and Fletcher Sharp will join me around the table on Juneteenth to talk about Juneteenth and a bunch of topics that are near it. It's a powerful one. Don't miss it. For today, thanks so much for listening. I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.